Number 1. The Bell Witch. Adams, Tennessee, 1817. John Bell's farm sat near the Red River, with fields, horses, and a family used to quiet nights. Then came scratching in the walls, knocking on doors, and strange animal shapes seen near the fences. At first, the Bells blamed weather, pests, or tired eyes, but the sounds followed them room to room, as if learning the house. Soon the disturbance found a voice. Neighbors said it answered questions, sang hymns, and repeated sermons it had no way to hear. It called itself many things, but the name people remembered was Kate. The voice teased visitors, scolded family members, and turned the little farm into the most talked-about place in Robertson County. People arrived just to listen. The story grew because so many people claimed they witnessed something. Some accounts even say Andrew Jackson came to test the mystery before he became president. By 1820, John Bell's health had failed, and in the legend, the voice boasted about his death. That detail made the tale darker than an ordinary ghost story because it tied fear to a real grave. After 1821, the worst activity faded, but the Bell Witch never truly left Tennessee memory. Was it a clever hoax, a family secret, or something no one could explain? The farm is gone now, yet the name still pulls people to Adams. In the dark, the legend feels like a voice waiting behind the wall, patient enough to start again near the river. Number 2. The Skunk Ape. Deep in the Florida Everglades, the water moves slowly under cypress knees and sawgrass. For generations, hunters, drivers, and campers have told of a tall, shaggy figure slipping between the trees. It walks like a man, smells like wet fur and swamp mud, and vanishes before anyone can get a clear look. Even daylight feels thin in that country. The name Skunk Ape became famous in the 1900s when Florida newspapers and roadside stories carried reports from the Everglades and Big Cypress. Witnesses described a powerful, ape-like creature with long arms, dark hair, and a strong odor that arrived before the sighting. Some said it crossed roads in 2 or 3 strides, then disappeared into the brush. Part of the legend works because the Everglades already feels hidden. Panthers, alligators, black bears, and wading birds live in a maze of water and trees. A sound can travel strangely there, and fog can turn a stump into a figure. Still, people kept reporting the same thing. Not a bear, not a man, but something between, watching from green shadow. Today, the skunk ape is less a monster than a symbol of wild Florida. Gift shops, swamp tours, and roadside museums keep the story alive. But the best part remains out in the heat and insects. When the trail goes quiet and that heavy smell rolls in, the old question comes back. What just moved behind the palms? Number 3. The Gray Man of Pawleys Island. Pawleys Island, South Carolina, has always lived close to the sea. The beaches are soft, the marshes shine at sunset, and storms can rise from the Atlantic with little mercy. Since the early 1800s, locals have told of a man in gray walking the shore before the worst hurricanes arrive. He never shouts. He only appears, silent as sea fog. One old version begins in 1822 with a young man traveling back to see the woman he loved. His horse became trapped in the marsh, and he never reached her. Days later, she saw his gray figure on the beach. Frightened by the vision, her family left the island. When a terrible storm came, their home was spared while other places suffered. In island memory, that choice saved them. Over time, the gray man became a warning, not a threat. Residents said he appeared before major storms, walking with his head low through wind and sea mist. Some families believed that seeing him meant they should go inland quickly. Others said homes connected to the sighting sometimes survived while nearby houses were damaged. The mystery is gentle but powerful. Maybe people saw a stranger, a shadow, or fear taking shape before a hurricane. Yet Polly's Island keeps the story because it gives the coast a guardian. When clouds pile over the water and the dunes begin to hiss, many still look down the beach for a quiet figure in gray, hoping he stays far away. The coast remembers such mercy. Number 4. The Rougarou. In the bayous of South Louisiana, stories travel by porch light, fishing boat, and kitchen table. One of the oldest is the Rougarou, a tall wolf-like creature said to stalk sugarcane fields, swamp roads, and cypress shadows. The name comes from French-speaking traditions, tied to the old idea of the loup-garou, or werewolf. Here, it grew a bayou soul. Cajun families used the tale in a practical way. Elders warned children not to wander after dark and reminded everyone to respect Lent, family rules, and the rhythms of community life. The Rougarou was not only a beast in the trees, it was a story with teeth, made to keep people close to home when the bayou turned black and the frogs went quiet. Descriptions change from parish to parish. Some say it has a human body and a wolf's head. Others say it moves like a man until moonlight catches its face. In many versions, the curse can pass from one person to another, but the tale is usually told with a wink, a warning, and a little smile at the edge. That is how folklore survives. Today, the Rougarou still belongs to Louisiana. Huma celebrates it with a family-friendly festival, and storytellers keep it alive beside food, music, and swamp culture. But late at night, when cane leaves scratch together and something splashes far off, the joke gets quiet. The bayou seems to remember its old monster. Number 5. Mothman. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, 1966. The Ohio River town was used to bridges, factories, and quiet roads, not a creature in the dark. Then people began reporting a huge winged figure near an old power plant area known as the TNT site. It had a man-like shape, broad wings, and red eyes that seemed to shine in headlights. The first story spread fast. The name Mothman came from newspapers, and the story spread even faster. Couples said the creature chased their car. Others reported strange lights in the sky, odd sounds, and a feeling that something was watching from the fields. From November 1966 into 1967, Point Pleasant became a place where ordinary night drives felt dangerous. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, killing 46 people. Afterward, many connected the Mothman sightings to the disaster, as if the creature had been a warning no one understood. Skeptics pointed to owls, fear, and rumor. But the timing made the legend hard to forget, and silence made it worse. No one agreed, but the fear stayed behind in town too. Today, Point Pleasant has a statue, a museum, and a festival for the creature that once terrified it. The town turned fear into folklore, but the story still keeps its shadow. When red lights flicker across the river at night, people remember the wings, the bridge, and the question that never landed. What was Point Pleasant seeing? Number 6. The Brown Mountain Lights. Burke County, North Carolina. Brown Mountain rises in the Blue Ridge like a dark wall above the valley. For many years, people looking from nearby ridges have reported small lights floating low in the night air. Sometimes one appears, sometimes several glow at once. They brighten, drift, hover for a moment, and then fade as if the mountain blinked. The stories were old by the time newspapers and investigators began writing them down. Encyclopedia places Brown Mountain on the Burke-Caldwell County line near Wilson Creek, and accounts say the lights have been documented since the 1800s. Campers, hunters, and families told of yellow, red, or white dots moving where no house or road seemed to be. Scientists tried to tame the mystery. In the early 1900s, investigators studied maps, lines of sight, train routes, roads, fires, and weather. Some lights were likely headlights or distant flames bent by the air. That explained certain sightings, but not every story. The mountain kept just enough silence to protect the legend itself. That is why people still watch the ridge. The Brown Mountain lights are not loud, not chasing anyone, not shaped like a ghost. They are stranger because they are simple, a glow where none should be. When the valley goes black and one pale spark lifts above the trees, it feels like the mountain is sending a message no one has learned to read on. Number 7. Robert the Doll. Key West, Florida, 1904. Young Robert Eugene Otto, called Gene, received a sailor-suited doll that would one day become more famous than many people who lived on the island. The doll was named Robert, and Gene kept him close for years. In a town of sea air, old houses, and narrow streets, the little figure began collecting whispers. Family stories said Robert was blamed for overturned furniture, strange giggles, and mischief Gene denied. Neighbors later claimed they saw the doll move near windows when no one should have been upstairs. Some parts of the tale changed with time, as legends do, but the center stayed the same. People felt watched by a toy that never blinked. Gene grew into an artist and lived in Key West's artist house, yet Robert remained part of the home. After Gene's death in 1974, the doll eventually passed into museum care. Since 1994, Robert has lived at Fort East Martello Museum, a Civil War-era brick fort run by the Key West Art and Historical Society. There, the story became a ritual for visitors. Visitors still speak politely before taking his picture, and many send letters if they think they were rude. Maybe it is playful museum tradition. Maybe it is nerves in front of glass and cloth. Either way, Robert sits in his small sailor suit, quiet and patient, while people lower their voices around him like he can hear every word. The glass feels thin. Number 8. The Donkey Lady. On the south side of San Antonio, Texas, an old crossing known as Donkey Lady Bridge sits away from the bright downtown lights. The story has many versions, which is often the sign of a legend that grew by being told at school, in cars, and around kitchen tables. Everyone changes one detail, but the bridge stays in the same dark place. In the best-known tale, a woman connected to a lonely farm suffers a terrible fire and disappears into the woods. After that, travelers say something strange begins haunting the road. They hear hoofbeats on the pavement, a cry in the brush, or a sharp sound beneath the bridge. Some say she looks like a woman. Others say something not quite human. No clear record proves one exact beginning. Some San Antonio versions reach back to pioneer days, while others sound more like a mid-1900s urban legend. That is what makes it feel local and alive. The Donkey Lady is less a single ghost with one date than a warning about lonely roads, old bridges, and the stories young people dare each other to test. Today, people still visit the bridge because fear is easier to face with headlights on and friends in the car. Most hear only insects, wind, and tires over old roadway. But if a sudden clatter rises behind them, the joke ends quickly. Number 9. The Mako Light. Near Wilmington, North Carolina, the old railroad stop called Farmer's Turnout became the center of a ghost story after a wreck in 1867. The tale says conductor Joe Baldwin was riding in the rear car of a train when it came uncoupled on a dark stretch of track. Realizing another train was coming, he grabbed his lantern and tried to warn it. The warning came too late. The collision killed Baldwin, and soon people began saying his lantern had not gone out. Along the rails west of Wilmington, witnesses reported a small light bobbing in the distance, as if someone were still searching the track. It could appear steady, then swing, vanish, or return farther away than before. The Mako Light became one of North Carolina's most famous railroad legends. For more than a century, train crews and local residents watched for it near the swampy lines. Some believed it was Joe still doing his duty. Others blamed signal reflections, headlights, or tricks of wet air over the tracks. Even when explanations came, the story held on. Around 1980, the old tracks were removed and sightings nearly disappeared. That ending made the legend feel even more tied to the railroad itself. The trains are gone now, and Joe's lantern no longer fools crews in the dark. Number 10. Sloss Furnaces. Birmingham, Alabama, 1882. Sloss furnaces began turning iron ore, coke, and limestone into pig iron at a time when the city was growing fast. Smoke rose over the rail lines, and the heat inside the blast furnaces was fierce. For nearly 90 years, men worked around fire, metal, steam, and machinery that never felt gentle at all. The plant helped Birmingham earn the name Magic City because industry seemed to make it rise almost overnight. But that magic came with danger. Early ironwork was hard, loud, and exhausting, especially for laborers who faced long hours and harsh conditions. Later ghost stories grew from that real history, not from empty darkness. One legend speaks of a cruel foreman called Slag, said to still bark orders in the old engine rooms and tunnels. Visitors have reported footsteps, voices, heat where there should be none, or a shadow moving beside the furnaces. Whether the stories are true or not, they carry the memory of workers whose lives were shaped by fire. Sloss stopped producing iron in 1971 and became a National Historic Landmark in 1981. Today it is a museum, a preserved giant of Southern industry. By daylight, it teaches how Birmingham was built. After dark, the pipes and stacks feel different. The furnace is cold, but the place still seems to breathe, as if the old work never fully ended. The silent yard seems to remember each shift. Number 11. Honey Island Swamp Monster. Honey Island Swamp, Louisiana. The Pearl River spreads into cypress trees, black water, and quiet channels where a boat can vanish around one bend. In 1963, retired air traffic controller Harlan Ford, who loved wildlife photography, said he saw something that did not fit the swamp he knew. It walked upright, dark and heavy, then slipped away. Ford and others later described a large, hairy creature with a strong swamp smell and strange webbed tracks. In 1974, Ford and his friend, Billy Mills, reported finding unusual footprints in the mud with long toes that did not look like a normal animal print. That detail gave the story weight because tracks feel more solid than a shadow. Old Louisiana tales also help shape the monster. Some people connect it to the Latiche, a swamp being from local folklore. Others tell a stranger story about escaped circus animals after a train wreck, though that sounds more like campfire talk than proof. The real swamp, with wild boar, alligators, and deep fog, makes almost any tale feel possible. Today, the Honey Island Swamp Monster is part warning, part wonder. Swamp tours mention it with a smile, but the trees still crowd close when the engine slows. If something splashes beyond the reeds, no one laughs right away. The legend lives because the swamp feels ancient enough to hide one more secret, breathing quietly beneath the moss. Number 12. The White River Monster. Newport, Arkansas, 1915. Along the bends of the White River, fishermen and farmers began speaking of a huge creature moving under the brown water. The river was already powerful, full of shifting sandbars, deep holes, and sudden currents. Then came reports of a smooth-backed thing rising near the surface, larger than any fish people expected to see there. The legend returned with force in 1937, when local stories spread through newspapers, and again in 1971, when witnesses near Newport claimed they saw a massive animal churning the river. Some described it as the size of a boxcar with gray skin and a strange sound like a mix between a cow and a horse. Others reported tracks and crushed brush near the bank. The most unusual part came in 1973. Arkansas lawmakers created the White River Monster Refuge, a protected stretch of river where it became illegal to harm the creature if it existed. That turned Whitey, as locals called it, into one of the rare American monsters with official protection, half joke, half proud river tradition. No one has ever proved what swam there. It may have been a large fish, a manatee far from home, an old log seen in bad light, or only river rumor growing bigger with every telling. Number 13. Altamaha. Near Darien, Georgia, the Altamaha River opens into marshes, old rice fields, and tidal creeks before meeting the Atlantic Ocean. Long before modern roads reached the coast, people told of a river creature living in that maze of water. The name Altamaha, or Alti, belongs to the river itself, and the legend is often linked to Muskogee Creek tradition. Reports describe a long creature with a snout, flippers, and a body that can roll through the water like a great fish or serpent. In 1830, one famous account claimed Captain Delano of the schooner Eagle saw a huge sea animal near St. Simon's with several crewmen. Later stories came from fishermen, timber workers, and people driving near Darien. Part of Alti's charm is that it is not always told as a vicious beast. In many Georgia versions, it feels more like a shy guardian of the river, seen briefly and then lost in the tide. Skeptics suggest sturgeon, alligator gar, manatees, or floating debris. But the Altamaha is wide, muddy, and old enough to blur the line between animal and legend. Today, Darien embraces Alti as its own coastal mystery. The creature appears in local tourism, art, and family stories, friendly enough for children, but strange enough to keep adults watching the water. When the marsh turns gold and something dark breaks the surface, the river seems to smile. Number 14. The Wampus Cat. Across the Appalachian Mountains, people once listened closely after sundown. A scream in the woods might be a cougar, a fox, or the wind twisting through a hollow. But in many mountain stories, that sound belonged to the Wampus Cat, a strange feline creature with glowing eyes and a body that seemed too large, too quick, and too clever for an ordinary animal. The Wampus Cat has many versions, and that is part of its history. Some stories connect it to Cherokee folklore, where a woman becomes tied to a mountain cat after crossing a sacred boundary. Other versions are pioneer tales, told by farmers and hunters who blame the creature for missing livestock, broken fences, or cries that made dogs hide under porches. By the early 1900s, newspapers in parts of the South were already using the name Wampus for a mystery animal in the hills. The creature shifted with each county. In one place it walked like a panther. In another it stood like a person. Sometimes it was a curse, sometimes it was a guardian. Folklore made room for all of it. That is why the Wampus Cat still feels alive. It is not one monster with one address. It is the fear of the dark woods given claws. When a mountain road bends into trees and a cry rises from nowhere, people do not pause to check every fact. They remember the old name, grip the wheel tighter, and let the forest keep whatever is watching. Number 15. Devil's Tramping Ground. Near Bear Creek in Chatham County, North Carolina, a small clearing sits in the woods like a mark pressed into the earth. It is often described as a circle about 40 feet wide where grass and brush struggle to take hold. For generations, local people have pointed to that bare patch and said it is not empty by accident, even now. The legend gives the place its name. At night, people say the devil walks in circles there, pacing while he plans new trouble. Anything left in the ring, even sticks or bottles, is said to be moved by morning. Dogs are said to dislike the spot, and campers have claimed that the quiet around the circle feels different from the rest of the forest. Of course, calmer explanations exist. Some have suggested soil chemistry, heavy foot traffic, old salt, natural minerals, or a long-forgotten meeting place. Encyclopedia also notes other theories, including old ceremonial use by native people. But no explanation has ended the story, because the circle looks simple and strange at the same time. The devil's tramping ground works because it asks very little. No ghost has to appear. No monster has to scream. The place only has to stay bare year after year, while leaves gather just beyond the edge. Number 16. The Grafton Monster. Grafton, West Virginia, June 16, 1964. Robert Cockrell finished his work at the local newspaper and drove near the Tygart Valley River late at night. Along the road, he saw what first looked like a huge pale shape near the bank. Then the shape seemed to move. In his telling, it was broad, white, and strange, like a body with no clear head. The next day, Cockrell's report in the Grafton paper lit a spark through town. Teenagers grabbed flashlights, neighbors scanned the river road, and curious crowds went looking for the thing in the weeds. Some stories said it stood 7 to 9 feet tall, with smooth skin and heavy shoulders. Others added a whistle in the dark, as if the creature warned people away. Part of the mystery is how brief the original sighting was. Skeptics have suggested a large animal, a white tarp, a rock, or shadows near the water, but folklore does not need a long visit to survive. One frightened witness, one strange roadside shape, and one small-town headline were enough to give Grafton a monster of its own. The town celebrates it with a festival, and the creature has even stepped into games and modern pop culture. Still, the best version remains on that quiet road in 1964. Number 17. Flatwoods Monster. Flatwoods, West Virginia, September 12, 1952. The evening began with children playing football near school. Then a bright object crossed the sky and seemed to come down on a nearby hill. It was the age of rockets, headlines, and sky watchers, so the children ran for help. Kathleen May joined them, and the group climbed toward the Bailey Fisher farm. At the top, their flashlight caught something that became one of America's strangest creature reports. Witnesses described a towering figure with glowing eyes, a dark body, and a head or hood shaped like a spade. A sharp smell filled the air, and fear took over. They ran back downhill, carrying a story that would soon travel far beyond Braxton County. Investigators later offered calmer answers. Many believe the light was a meteor, and the monster may have been an owl in a tree, made larger by darkness, panic, and strange shadows. But the children and May always knew what the night felt like to them. The shock, the smell, the eyes, and the rush downhill became the real heart of the legend. Today, Flatwoods and nearby Sutton have turned the fear into pride. The Flatwoods Monster Museum, roadside chairs, and colorful signs keep Braxy alive for families and travelers. Yet under the fun, the old scene still glows. A hill, a flashlight, and children staring up at something they could not explain. Number 18, Dead Children's Playground. Huntsville, Alabama. Maple Hill Cemetery is the city's oldest and largest burial ground, with roots reaching back to the early 1820s. Governors, soldiers, families, and children rest beneath its trees. Beside the cemetery, tucked under limestone cliffs, sits a small playground. By day, it looks peaceful. By night, locals say it changes. The legend is simple and hard to forget. When the park is empty, people claim the swings move on their own. Some say they hear children laughing after dark, even when no one is there. Others connect the stories to young graves nearby, or to children lost during hard times in Huntsville's past, including the Great Sickness of 1918. The place became so famous that when the city removed the playground equipment in 2007 during cemetery expansion plans, residents pushed back. The playground returned, and the legend grew stronger. That real fight to save the space gave the ghost story a human side. People did not only fear it, they cared about it. The playground is not frightening because something jumps from the trees. It is frightening because it stays quiet. A swing moves, then stops. A laugh seems to rise, then disappears into the rock wall. In a city full of history, this small place feels like a memory, still trying to play after everyone else has gone home. Number 19, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Louisville, Kentucky, 1910. Waverly Hills opened on a hill outside the city to treat tuberculosis, the illness many people then called the White Plague. At the time, fresh air, rest, sunlight, and careful nursing were among the best tools doctors had. Families arrived hoping the high ground and open porches might give loved ones a chance. As the need grew, Waverly Hills expanded, and by the 1920s, it became a large Tudor Gothic building with long corridors and wide windows. Patients lived there for weeks, months, or years. Some recovered and went home. Others did not. The true history is sad enough without exaggeration, because before antibiotics, tuberculosis could change a whole community. The ghost stories came later from that deep memory. Visitors speak of footsteps in empty halls, soft voices, shadows at the edges of doorways, and the famous story of a nurse near room 502. Some tales are likely shaped by movies and tours, but the building itself carries a heavy feeling. Hospitals keep echoes, even after the beds are gone. Waverly Hills closed as a tuberculosis hospital in 1961, after medicine changed what once seemed hopeless. Today, people visit for history as much as haunting. The windows still watch Louisville from the hill, and the hallways seem to hold their breath. Number 20, Myrtle's Plantation. St. Francisville, Louisiana, 1796. David Bradford built a home called Laurel Grove in what was then Spanish West Florida. Bradford had fled Pennsylvania after the Whiskey Rebellion, and this quiet land near the Mississippi River became his refuge. Later, owners expanded the house, and the property became known as the Myrtles, shaded by live oaks and moss. The real history is layered and serious. The house stood through changes of government, family loss, and the plantation era, when enslaved people worked the land. Over time, stories gathered around the rooms. The most famous is Chloe, often described as a woman in a green turban. Another legend says an old mirror holds the images of people who once lived there. Not every tale can be proven, and some details have changed through retelling. That matters, because the Myrtles is both a historic home and a stage for folklore. Guests report footsteps on stairs, a figure near the veranda, and faces in glass. Skeptics point to creaking wood, old mirrors, and suggestion, but the stories keep finding new listeners. Today, the Myrtles operates as a historic inn where beauty and unease share the same porch. Sunlight makes the house graceful, but dusk changes the mood. Number 21. St. Augustine Lighthouse, St. Augustine, Florida, 1874. The new lighthouse rose 165 feet above Anastasia Island, built to guide ships near the nation's oldest city. But before the lamp fully became a symbol of safety, the grounds already carried sorrow. In 1873, during construction, a small rail cart rolled toward the water. 3 children were trapped in the accident, and the story never left the tower. 2 of the children were Mary and Eliza Pitty, daughters of Hezekiah Pitty, who helped oversee the work. Their younger sister Carrie was often linked to the legend too, though accounts of the accident name Mary, Eliza, and another child. Families on the island remembered the loss, and later visitors said the lighthouse did not feel empty, even when tours ended. Over the years, people reported small footsteps on the spiral stairs, laughter echoing from high inside the tower, and shadows moving near the keeper's house. Some said the children still played where the construction cart once ran. Others heard voices in the dark, light and quick, like a game continuing long after sunset. The lighthouse still works as a museum and landmark, and by day it is beautiful. But at night, when the black ocean presses close and the stairs ring under careful feet, the past seems near. Number 22. Alice Flagg, Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, mid-1800s. Alice Flagg lived in a world of family rules, marsh wind, and old coastal pride. The legend says she fell in love with a young man her family thought was beneath her station. He gave her a ring, and because she could not wear it openly, Alice tied it to a ribbon and hid it close to her heart. When Alice became ill, the secret came out. Her brother, often named Dr. Allard Flagg in local versions, found the ring and took it away. Some say he threw it into the marsh. Some say it vanished into a creek. Alice died young, and her grave at All Saints, Waccamaw became one of the most visited places in Georgetown County folklore. The ghost story is not loud. People do not describe chains or screams. They describe a young woman in white, seen near the Hermitage or along the old marshy paths, still looking for the lost ring. Visitors sometimes walk around her grave, hoping for a sign. Others, leave small tokens, as if kindness might calm a sorrow that was never given time to heal. Alice Flagg's legend lasts because it feels human. It is about love, class, family pressure, and one missing piece of jewelry that became larger than life. When the tide slips through Merle's Inlet and the grass bends silver in moonlight, the story feels unfinished. Somewhere in the marsh, Alice may still be searching with quiet hands. Number 23. The Pope Lick Monster. Louisville, Kentucky, near Pope Lick Creek, a high railroad trestle cuts across the trees like a dark ladder in the sky. Local stories say a half-man, half-goat creature waits near the bridge, hiding below the tracks or in the brush. Some call it the Pope Lick Monster. Others simply call it the Goatman, and they lower their voices when they say it. The legend grew in many directions. In one version, the creature escaped from a circus train. In another, it was once human and became something else through a curse. The most famous tale says it uses whistles, voices, or strange charm to lure curious people onto the trestle. That detail makes the story more than spooky. It becomes a warning. The real danger is not a monster with horns. The real danger is the active railroad bridge itself. The trestle rises about 90 feet and stretches hundreds of feet over the creek area. Trains still use those tracks, and over the years, people have been hurt or killed after climbing where they should never go. Folklore and fact meet there in a hard way. So the Pope Lick Monster remains one of Kentucky's strongest cautionary legends. It gives a face to a place people must respect. At dusk, the bridge looks lonely and old, and the woods seem to listen. Whether the goatman waits below or not, the warning is real. Stay off the tracks, because some legends do not need teeth to take lives. Number 24. The Singing River. Pascagoula, Mississippi. The river moves wide and dark toward the Gulf, carrying fresh water, marsh smell, and one of the South's oldest mysteries. For generations, people have said that on quiet nights, a low musical hum rises from the water. It has been compared to a flute, a glass rim, or voices far away under the current. The legend belongs to the Pascagoula people. One old version says they faced capture by enemies and chose the river together, walking hand in hand while singing a final song. In the story, the water kept their voices. Since then, the river has been called the Singing River, not because it shouts, but because it murmurs when the air is still. Travelers, settlers, and later writers repeated the mystery. Some tried natural answers: fish, insects, moving sand, wind, or sound carried strangely over warm water. None of those explanations fully removed the wonder. The Pascagoula River is also one of the great free-flowing river systems of the Gulf Coast, and its wildness helps the story breathe. Stand near the bank at night, and the legend becomes easy to understand. The water slides past like black glass. Reeds whisper. Then maybe a sound rises too soft to chase and too steady to ignore. It may be nature, memory, or only the mind listening too hard. But in Pascagoula, the river has never been just water. It has always had a voice. Number 25. Huggin' Molly. Abbeville, Alabama. For generations, children heard the same warning when the sun went down. Do not stay out too late, or Huggin' Molly might find you. She was said to be 7 feet tall, dressed in dark clothing, with long arms made for catching children who forgot the time. She was not told as a killer. She was told as a lesson. The story says Molly walked the quiet streets after dark, listening for children still playing when they should be home. If she caught one, she gave a huge cold hug and screamed right in the child's ear. That was enough. The child ran home, breathless and wide-eyed, and parents had one more reason to smile at a warning that worked. No one knows the exact first date of the legend. Some say it came from old town stories, others from parents trying to keep children safe before streetlights and easy phone calls. That practical use is important. Huggin' Molly may sound strange, but she belonged to a world where getting children home after dark truly mattered. Today, Abbeville has embraced her. A local restaurant, Huggin' Molly's, keeps the name alive with a 1950s-style soda fountain and hometown charm. The monster became memory, and memory became pride. Still, when evening settles on Abbeville and the streets grow quiet, the old warning has a little life left in it. Number 26. The Marfa Lights. Marfa, Texas. Beyond the town lights, the desert opens wide under a huge black sky. Since 1883, stories say rancher Robert Reed Ellison saw a strange glow while moving cattle near Paisano Pass. He thought it might be a campfire, but when people searched the open ground, they found no ash, no smoke, and no clear source. Soon, other settlers began speaking of the same mystery. The lights could appear white, yellow, red, or blue, then split apart, join again, or drift along the horizon. In a land where distances fool the eye, one glow could seem close, and then suddenly far away. That made the story perfect for West Texas, where silence already feels enormous. Scientists have offered practical answers over time: car headlights, temperature layers in the air, mirages, dust, or light bending across the flat desert. Some sightings likely are explained that way, but people still argue because the oldest reports came before the modern highways that are often blamed, and the lights never perform on command. Today, families gather at the Marfa Lights viewing area, looking east into the dark like people at an outdoor theater. Some nights, nothing happens. Other nights, a small point flickers and everyone gets quiet. The desert gives no promise, no proof, and no apology. Number 27. Old Alton Bridge. Denton County, Texas. Old Alton Bridge crosses Hickory Creek with iron ribs, wood planks, and a long memory. The historic bridge was built in 1884 by the King Iron Bridge Manufacturing Company, and it once carried horses, wagons, and later cars between local communities. By day, it looks peaceful, shaded by trees and trails. At night, people know it by another name, Goatman's Bridge. The legend often tells of a goat farmer named Oscar Washburn, said to have lived near the bridge in the 1930s. In the story, he becomes the target of local hatred, then vanishes after a violent encounter. After that, travelers say something angry remains near the creek. Some versions warn that if a person crosses without headlights, red eyes may appear in the woods. Others tell of knocks on cars, stones thrown from nowhere, or a heavy shape moving near the railings. The bridge left vehicle service in 2001 and became part of a trail system, but the ghost stories only grew louder once cars stopped crossing daily. Old Alton Bridge is frightening because real history and dark folklore stand together on the same boards. It is a preserved landmark, but it is also a place where people test courage after sunset. Number 28. Saratoga Light. Saratoga, Texas. Bragg Road cuts straight through the Big Thicket, one of the densest wooded regions in the state. The road began as a railroad bed in 1901 when tracks connected Bragg Station to Saratoga. The rails were removed in 1934, but the long, narrow path remained, and that is where the ghost light made its home. Locals call it the Saratoga Light, the Big Thicket Light, or the Bragg Road Ghost Light. It is said to appear far down the road as a glowing orb, sometimes white, sometimes yellow, sometimes shifting in the dark. In the old story, it is the lantern of a railroad worker, still searching the line after an accident that left him lost forever. The setting helps the legend breathe. Trees crowd the road, branches meet overhead, and the straight path can make distance feel strange. Skeptics point to car headlights, reflections, or a trick of air along the flat road. Believers answer that the light moves oddly, appears when it should not, and vanishes before anyone can reach it. That is the pull of Bragg Road. It offers just enough science to doubt and just enough darkness to believe. A group can laugh in the car for miles, then fall silent when one pale dot appears ahead. In the Big Thicket, the road seems endless, and the light always stays a little farther away, like it wants to be followed but never found. Number 29. Blackbeard's Ghost. Ocracoke Island, North Carolina, November 22nd, 1718. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, met his end in the shallow waters off the Outer Banks. Lieutenant Robert Maynard and his men came from Virginia to capture him, and the fight near Ocracoke was fierce. By morning, the pirate captain was dead, and his legend had only begun. Blackbeard already knew how to turn fear into a weapon. Stories say he braided his beard with slow-burning fuses so smoke curled around his face in battle. Whether every detail is true or not, his image worked. Sailors remembered him as a figure who looked half human, half storm, and after his death, the coast refused to let him rest. Folklore says his body was thrown into the water near Teach's Hole, and some tales claim it swam around the ship before sinking. Later, sailors spoke of a blue light under the waves or a shadow moving near the shoals. Some said Blackbeard was searching for his head. Others said he was looking for the crew and treasure he lost. Today, Ocracoke is quiet, beautiful, and full of sea wind, but the pirate story still darkens the water at dusk. History tells us Blackbeard died there. Folklore says something of him stayed. When a strange glow trembles beneath the surface, the Outer Banks feels like it is remembering a name the sea never swallowed, even after 300 years. Number 30. The Surrency Spook. Surrency, Georgia, October 1872. Alan Powell. Surrency's home became the center of a story too strange for a quiet railroad town. At first, the family heard noises and saw small things move. Then the reports grew wilder. Glass broke, books fell, clocks acted strangely, and objects seemed to fly as if invisible hands had taken over the rooms. Word spread quickly, and visitors came to judge the matter for themselves. Neighbors, reporters, skeptics, and curious travelers crowded into the house. Many later claimed they saw the disturbances with their own eyes. Some accounts said more than 70 people witnessed something unusual, which made the case harder to dismiss as one frightened family's tale. The Surrency spook became famous because it happened in public view. People argued over every explanation: hidden wires, clever pranks, nervous imagination, or a poltergeist drawn to the house. No answer satisfied everyone. The activity continued for months, then faded, leaving behind reports that sounded too detailed to ignore and too strange to prove. The house is gone now, and Surrency returned to being a small Georgia town. But the story still feels unfinished.
If you enjoy this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.